Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's webinar that will demonstrate how you can transform your legal practice with Microsoft Managed Workplace. My name is Daniel Bruce, and I work in the marketing team at GCI, and your host for this morning are GCI's legal sector lead, Keith Lowry. Good morning, Keith.
Morning, Dan. Good morning, everyone.
And GCI's Microsoft Partner Director, Lyndon Evans. Good morning, Lyndon.
Good morning, everybody. Hi.
If you experience any technical issues or have any questions throughout the webinar, you can submit them using the chat icon in the bottom left-hand corner. After the webinar, we'll be sending you a recording of the webinar, accompanied by the presentation slides used. I'll now pass you on to Keith. We do hope you enjoy the webinar. Over to you, Keith.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar this morning. We've got a compact 30 minutes for you before the momentum of the day gathers pace. We've got some full, great content for you today. I'll just give you an example, obviously, of the power of the technology. So we've got Daniel this morning. He's over at our pool office. He's going to be coordinating the slide deck and the presentation. I've got myself, I'm working from home in Surrey currently, and I've got Lyndon's actually a client site in Dagenham and about to go into a meeting later in the day. So it just shows you the power of the collaboration that can be achieved. Obviously, myself and Lyndon today will be showing you really the capabilities of the technology and what can be achieved to great effect within the market. But obviously, everybody here will know their own businesses individually, so you'll see exactly where these technologies could add value to your operation day to day. I think it's always great to ask some challenging questions when you're on, obviously, a webinar of this type. Why consider these digital technologies? What are they going to deliver? What's the return on investment? Why partner with GCI? Why partner with Microsoft? All very challenging questions and great questions to ask any vendor or partner in the market. What's been delivered in the past in the sector, the size, the complexity, the solutions. There needs to be some case studies to back all these recommendations up. So the key thing is, it's the focus really on the outcomes that you're looking to achieve within your operation. The technology is fine, but actually it's all about the outcomes. GCI, Microsoft, and yourselves, it's all about the outcomes you're looking to achieve within your business. So how can these technologies help to deliver those outcomes? There's lots of confusing messages within the market, to be honest, around Teams, Skype, digital cloud. This morning's all about just really offering more clarity, cutting through the confusion, and helping you to get more advice to create the best digital strategy going forward. And just to give an example of how these technologies are really accessible to everybody, recently GCI have just won a project to deliver Skype to 8,000 users in our Houses of Parliament. The 18 Parliament buildings there, one of them of course is the House of Lords, and the average age within the House of Lords is 69. So we obviously understand there will be bespoke training and support available, and it really gives, it's a good example that these technologies are really available for everybody out there. So just moving through today to just cover the sort of the topics we're going to run through. There's three key areas that we're focusing on today. Really is just to sort of understand the digital solutions and the trends in the legal sector, which solutions to consider and why. Lyndon will kindly go through that in a second, and then examples of how the solutions have been used to great effect within the sector. But in order for that to happen, there has to be an element of innovation and change within any operation, and we understand, we're talking to clients from the legal sector, that these are the challenges that constantly come back to us. The systems need to be flexible and scalable. They obviously need to be able to, for example, encompass mergers and acquisitions that are happening. Very much at the forefront of people's minds at the moment. GDPR is not too far away, so of course security and compliance always comes up. And Microsoft, as you would expect, and GCI do obviously ensure these solutions are in line with regulation and compliance requests, and so they're able to obviously evolve and scale as needed. And also often they need to be able to merge disparate systems into one, so these solutions can replace 4, 5 or 6 systems that are currently working independently, and it's a lot simpler model and a lot easier to support going forward. But in order for all this to happen, again, we need to make sure there's an appetite for it. So Dan, if we can just move to the next slide. These are some great statements actually currently within the marketplace from some of the largest prestigious brands within the sector. It shows there is a real appetite for innovation out there. We obviously understand that some operations are very much early adopters. They like to encourage the technology early. Some in fact invest in the market in these sort of technologies. to obviously try and get the benefit as early as possible. Others, we understand, take a different approach. They will obviously wait to see until the technologies are a little bit more proven, let's say, and obviously the case has been made, and then obviously look to introduce. So either strategy is fine. We'd obviously welcome a further conversation post the webinar today to sort of discuss those ideas, but obviously at your own pace, we're absolutely you can obviously encourage these technologies into your strategy as soon as possible. And just a fairly bold statement that's been made in the market, if we just move to the next slide, is a recent survey done by PwC, which confirms quite categorically what CEOs are thinking at this stage. They understand that these digital technologies are obviously paramount to the operation. They give you an edge in the market, create USPs, but also more importantly, I think, actually ensure that obviously you've got you keep your mainstay in your market share. We all know brands out there who haven't adapted quick enough in the past and unfortunately fallen by the wayside, and obviously that's what these technologies give you ultimately. So what I'll do now is I'll hand over to Lyndon, who's going to just introduce some of the solutions to consider and why you should consider them. So we just move to the next slide. I should let Lyndon take over.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, everybody. I've got a lot to talk about, but limited time. So looking at this slide here, we're talking about Microsoft's approach to the market and how they help us understand business transformation. Microsoft's got lots and lots of different products and services. On the left-hand side, Microsoft typically has four sort of pillars. Microsoft Workplace, business applications, application infrastructure, data and AI. In other words, that's sort of Office 365, that's CRM, that's application infrastructure like Azure and those sorts of services. And you've got data lakes and different types of storing data up in Azure and artificial intelligence. So you've got basically a number of different Microsoft stacks. They basically deliver those, and they talk about four different sort of areas within the customer base, within your business, of how you can help your organization, how your workforce change, and to implement the technologies. So literally, we talk about empowering employees, engaging customer, optimizing operations, and transforming products. So Dan, if you put me onto the next slide, I can talk about some individual products in these areas or solutions in these areas that might give you some help in understanding where Microsoft are coming from and how you can use these technologies in these areas to give you some value. So, for instance, with empowering employees, for instance, we talk about digital workplace. Digital workplace is literally all about Office, Teams, Skype for Business, giving these services to your customers, your users, so that they can work where they need to and how they need to, and work flexibly and work remotely, and basically get the job done they need to. So we talk about efficiencies in the workforce and the like. When we talk about engaging customers, for instance, we talk about, for instance, customer experience transformation. What we're talking about here is using things like CRM, using things like Skype for Business, using sort of databases. What we can do is when an inbound call comes into your contact center, we can work out that customer has rung us before, and we can say, hi, you spoke to us yesterday. Is it about the same problem? Or actually, we knew we sent you an email last week asking you to call us. So you can say, you're ringing about this. And we can then basically work how customers interact with us, give them a better experience, service them better on the phone or via omni-channel sort of, contact center, through email, through SMS, through other social media sites. Looking further over to optimizing operations, we can go and look at sort of business insights and things like this, where we can actually gather huge amounts of data we've got in our organizations, pull them together and manipulate and model them through things like Power BI, and actually get different insights into our business, linking things together and making decisions. Okay, so just to give you an idea there of where Microsoft's stack is, how they translate those over into some business scenarios that we can work on in our organization with our customers. So one of the things I want to talk about was Microsoft 365. It's important to realize this is not Microsoft Office 365. Microsoft 365 is basically a licensing suite that gives you Windows 10, Office 365, EMS, and some of the advanced Azure services. And the idea being is that when you take these services, you've got a bundle of software that allows you to be productive quite quickly. Microsoft talks about a couple of different areas where we can talk about values. We talk about unlocking creativity, building teamwork and things. And just an idea, unlocking creativity. So if any of you have got a Microsoft Surface or you use pen and ink, technologies. What it means now is that we've got multi-generational people in the workforce. I started off my career writing memos. I work with people now who like to draw on pictures to communicate. So what we can do now is all work on the same tools and using things like pen and ink. Instead of me having to explain to you a screen that I'm working on, I've got a problem on it, I can take a screenshot, I can highlight it with pen and ink, say, here's my problem, send it an email, and you can look at it actually first time and say, oh, there's a problem, we can sort it out. So it's just different ways of working. We've got built for teamwork. Teamwork is basically all around voice, video, email, easy collaboration. Much like today, we're sitting in different places in the country. We can all collaborate really easy using Skype for Business and give this webinar. When we talk about integrated for simplicity and things like this, what we're talking about is that it's cloud-based, it's secure, it's basically a lower cost of ownership. It can deploy very easy. You've got one version, it's constantly up to date. And then we've got actually one of the biggest sort of advantages of using the Microsoft ecosystem, using the SNAC, is all on security. It's all based on Azure Active Directory. We can have a single identity and take that to different applications. So Microsoft 365 has lots and lots of power across all our organizations. It blends everything together to enable us to do things with our workforce and our customers better. So Microsoft Teams is something you've probably all heard of. You may already have it. Microsoft Teams basically is a very new application for Microsoft. In fact, its birthday is coming up on the 14th, 15th of March, when it was first introduced in 365. It's basically taken off like wildfire for Microsoft. And the reason they've introduced Teams is because some of the figures on here we talk about. When in the industry we see today, there are twice as many Teams now as there were 5 years ago. And we think in technology has allowed us to work more flexibly and has allowed us to embrace technology and work the way we want to, so we can split up into virtual teams. That's important. We see it's about 50% increase in collaborative working. Because now we're in teams, we can work from anywhere. We can collaborate much easier. I don't have to travel to an office to go and meet people. And we can now collaborate more effectively. And that means we're more efficient. And what we're talking about now is those teams that collaborate and use technology are more likely to be high-performing teams, more successful, because they're not delaying decisions, they meet physically, they can do things as they need to. Take that to the bottom part of the slide, and we talk about internal and external members. What we mean is we can now not only collaborate with our workers, we can collaborate with our business partners in a B2B relationship, we can collaborate with third parties as members of the public. Skype, for instance, will talk to Skype users, can talk to Skype for Business users. So that means we can talk across our organisation boundaries much easier. We can also work geographically differently. Okay, in the UK, and we're in different parts of the UK, we can be in different parts of the world right now doing the same thing. And also we've got different diverse workforces. We've got 5 generations in the workforce right now, all working different ways. Teams was basically developed to enable us all to work our own ways, but put everything in one area. So we've got one repository for all our data, whichever we want to work on it. Teams is basically a brand new UI that sits on top of a lot of the Office 365 applications you've already got. So you access Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, OneDrive. You can use all these different applications in one single UI, as well as being enabling you to collaborate, to video call, to make calls, and like. So really, it's just one user interface you can go to for all your work. As well as that, it's integrated deeply into 365. So anything you do in 365, you can generally do in Teams. And also, it's got a big back end of APIs where you can either use it to get new services from such things as the Microsoft sort of store, or if you've got a web development team or development team in-house, you can customize the team back end to pull in data from your own applications, your own business applications, your own line of business application, and then basically give users everything they need in one spot. Based on everything in Microsoft, it's based on the Active Directory on the security plane. So for GDPR compliance and the like, everything's in one area. You can look after it, you can manage it, maintain it, analyze it, report it, and delete it. And importantly, with GDPR and the right to be forgotten. So, Teams is a brand new sort of application that covers everything that you need to look at. And giving the users some really good power from Office 365. So basically in October last year, Microsoft announced that Teams is going to be the new sort of application platform within 365, and basically a lot of voice services are going to be pulled into the bottom of it, so you can make telephony calls and the like. So right now in the marketplace, you've got sort of 2 options. You can look at Microsoft Teams, or you can look at Skype for Business for your enterprise voice scenarios. Microsoft Teams is getting developing. At the moment, it's not on par with Skype for Business, but over time it will be. And what we'll see in the future is that Microsoft Teams will have more and more functionality, and Skype for Business will be used underneath it, really, for giving a lot of the enterprise voice technologies. So if you want to go on premise, you can use Skype for Business for virtual workloads, and if you just want to be in the cloud and you've got very simple voice needs, you probably use Microsoft Teams. And that's where we're at right now. That's developing quite quickly and moving forward, and Teams is getting a lot more functionality daily. I just want to talk about Skype for Business really quickly. So just to refresh everybody, Skype for Business consists of audio conferencing, video conferencing, web conferencing, instant messaging, voicemail, and more importantly, telephony, full business-grade telephony. The amount of PBXs I've taken out of custom premises but Skype for Business in is phenomenal, because it just links into Office 365 to the desktop and everything you do. So that's just a snapshot of what Skype for Business is. Often forgotten. It's just not a PBX platform. It does a heck of a lot more. So we've got one platform for meetings and voice. Okay, so what can it do for you in a business? I often get asked questions about, okay, I'm building a business case for Skype for Business. What should I consider? So there's a lot of areas to consider. I've just split them into 3 areas here to make it simple. We've got mobility, collaboration, intelligent productivity. What do I mean by mobility? Mobility means that you can work from anywhere. Anywhere you get IP connectivity, you can work. So like I'm sitting at a desk now in a customer site I've borrowed often to give this presentation. I knew as long as I got IP connectivity, I can work here. Okay, I could have done it from anywhere I went to be a Starbucks or whatever. But it means you can get, faster access to information. You can support bringing your own device, but generally it means increased productivity for everybody. Collaboration in real time. What we're talking about here is literally the ability to communicate and be part of that virtual team inside your organization or across organizations really easily. So using Skype for Business, you can use it on any device and you can be collaborative. Simple as that. And then moving over to intelligent productivity, what it means is that we can spend less travel time, less time traveling, more time working, less time on the desk, be more flexible. I was talking to somebody recently and they were saying the advantages of, so especially right now, and it's quite topical actually, with the weather we've got, you can say, you know what, I'm not taking that risk to do my commute tomorrow. I can work from home and I can be equally productive. I don't need to be in the office. And I show my age, if you saw me on video, a little bit of grey hair, anytime, anywhere, it's the martini moment. I can literally work anywhere on any device at any time. Literally, that's what Skype does for me. So, did you know, I normally ask this question, wait for a pause for audience feedback, but did you know there are 4 ways to deploy Skype for Business? On-premise, hosted, Microsoft Cloud, and basically a hybrid model. Depending on what you want to do, there's a different scenario for each of them, and we can happily talk you through what's right for your business needs and requirements at a later date. But literally, bear in mind, there are 4 ways to deploy. It's important you talk to somebody that can talk you through all different modes and work out which is the best solution for you. At this point, I'll just hand back to Keith to finish off on one slide.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. So I've got a bit of a dilemma with this slide, to be honest. We turned it contact center because we know everybody will be able to relate to that, but actually it sort of gives the wrong impression. I'll quickly explain why in a second. Also, the other term on there obviously is omni-channel. It may be a term you've come across, it may not be. Just to quickly explain that, that just represents the multiple different communication channels that exist these days. Obviously, we know in the past that voice was always dominant, but these days we've got voice, we've got IM, we've got email, we've got social media, we've got text messaging. There's an awful lot more things going on, and it really is just how these solutions manage to converge and control all of those communication channels into one pane of glass, one screen for anybody who's liaising with a client or speaking to a client. All the information is there. Often we see disparate systems within operations, and so information gets missed when you're actually talking to a client with regard to an inquiry, etc. Just to give you a bit of an example of within the marketplace how these solutions have been used to great effect. Just in the sector, there's a couple of great options out there which have been utilised. There's a fairly major brand in the sector just now who they're doing a great job of actually linking inquiries together and cross-sell in effect. So not a light subject matter first thing in the morning, but let's say you've got a request for some legal support on a divorce case, for example. Of course, the case management notes will be registered on the system with regard to that particular case. But then obviously there may be a marital home involved, so of course conveyancing may also be required, so linked to the original inquiry, but obviously a separate inquiry could be created but linked. And then also of course there may be some will writing services required as well, and adjustments need to be made there. So a simple example of how the systems are linking together, but they've been used to great effect along that model within the marketplace currently. And I think the other great thing these systems give you is visibility. Everything can be recorded, whether it's verbal or written. You've got full visibility of what's happening. And another element that it's been used for within the market, which is a bit unusual, every operation has got a support desk somewhere internally. Sometimes it's externally facing as well. IT or HR are good examples of these. These support desks do get an awful lot of traffic and communications. Often there's no visibility and you can't exactly see what the performance is across those support desks. Another good example, a major legal brand had a very large hardware and software refresh project to do to over thousands of users. They knew that support desk was going to get an awful lot more inquiries than usual. What was very paramount within the project was it had to have visibility, accountability, and they had to meet some very strict SLAs on the project. So these solutions were incorporated to track exactly the number of voice inquiries, all the communication channels that they got with regard to support on that project. They were able to report on it, see the statistics, and obviously adjust the business accordingly based on the management information reporting. That's the more critical thing. And also these days, clients will decide to a certain extent how they're going to communicate with a brand. It's a major challenge for every brand in the market currently. You've got your Generation Z, you've got your millennials, you've got your baby boomers. They all communicate in a different way, and what these solutions do in one solution, they incorporate all of that and capture all that information. Also, when these solutions are in place, you will be up to 20% more productive with these solutions. So with the same number of people within the teams, you could achieve 20% more, or obviously going the other way, you could achieve the same amount of productivity with 20% less, and obviously deploy people elsewhere within the business. You'll see there's great examples in the market currently of similar to this solution where manual process has been replaced by automation. We've not got time to go through too much more detail today, but there's lots more examples out there, so certainly welcome that conversation. GDPR obviously is not too far away now. It's at the forefront of everybody's mind at the moment. There's no silver bullet with regard to GDPR, but these solutions obviously help. If you get a request and a deadline for information, these solutions help you to research information quickly and take away the case cost of any human resource that might be required to try and obviously trace information and deliver within the deadlines. And PCI also, of course, an important aspect within the market now. GCI level 1 accredited for PCI. There's currently 354 regulations that you need to meet every year. GCI have various different levels of support we can offer. If you took the fully managed service, we take that 354 regulations down to just 5 every year, and we de-scope the risk off-site. So obviously that it puts you in much better shape. And also these solutions, when they're in play, everybody will achieve up to 30 minutes more productivity a day. And when you're putting that across 1,000 people or more, you can imagine the ROI on these systems are immediate. So I think the case is proven from that respect. Lyndon mentioned it a second ago. Even it's amazing how these systems stretch into areas of the business you don't realise. So even something like absenteeism is reduced every year. The sickness and absenteeism to any business is costly. Colleagues will know I occasionally do suffer from a bad back from time to time. Quite recently, I had a period of a week where I couldn't attend any face-to-face meetings, operated from home very effectively, very productively throughout that period. And as Lyndon mentioned, snow is due this week at some point. All of that is taken, can have a great effect on business, obviously with regard to disruption. When everybody's got access to all of the information they need from any location, of course, it takes that away. Just want to give an idea for everybody, just obviously how these systems are being utilised to great effect within the market. Obviously, it's a big name that everybody will know. This project was rolled out over an 18-month period. Keogh's have been a client of GCI's for many years now, but they were at a point where a lot of businesses reached this point. The current infrastructure and systems just couldn't cope with the requirement of the business moving forward. So they were in a growth mode. They needed to be more flexible. The current PBX that was in place was very inflexible and couldn't cope with obviously the requirement. they went through a period of a full upgrade. So new hardware was dispatched, new case management system was introduced, and they obviously introduced a remote and agile working policy. Several disparate systems also were moved into one. So once Skype was introduced to actually replace the PBX system, we've got voice, IM, video conferencing, desktop sharing, and presence all on one platform, whereas before they were disparate systems and not integrated in any way. Then all of a sudden, the ease of collaboration internally and externally was obviously paramount. And they were able to federate the systems with their major clients, their Skype systems, and also with their major suppliers, which obviously just helps to build and solidify business relationships, obviously, which are of their most important relationships within the operation. And since actually it was initially put in, they've taken a stage further and actually introduced analytics, so it gives them granular reporting across every aspect of the business, so they can obviously adjust the business, make great business decisions based on the users and the user team that are out there. It obviously also helps to identify if there's any training elements that are required. So if, let's say, the system's not getting used in the manner that it was hoped, that can be identified and further training can obviously be introduced to improve the ROI. They even managed to reduce the actual amount of desk space that are required across their office locations, obviously further savings because we had this remote agile working policy in place. A lot of information on this slide, certainly not going to go through it all. It's like one of those tests you get at the opticians when you go along to test your eyesight. The real theme behind this is just to really show that GCI operate under 5 main service pillars. And I think the width of our portfolio is certainly one of our strengths. So it may just be a case of actually we're delivering a UC or a cloud project to yourselves, but obviously it's paramount that the network infrastructure operates at an optimum level. Even though that's not the area that we look after, we obviously have the expertise within the operation to advise on that and make sure the two obviously work together to give the best return. And often when you go to market, you may be speaking to a partner who may have one pillar, possibly two, under the brand, and if they need to go to the other 3 pillars, they have to bring in third-party support. That makes things more complex and can certainly cause additional issues. With GCI, it's all under one banner, delivered by one operation. This is just a very brief snapshot. We haven't got a lot of time to go through this, but some of the projects that we work with, the logos that we work with in the legal sector, and some other logos that are linked to the legal sector. This is just a brief snapshot. We've got an awful lot more than that. But with that, I'll just hand back to Lyndon, who's just going to run through the takeaways for today.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Just before we finish the session today, just a couple of key takeaways that I find is quite helpful in sort of helping me jog memory and set the sort of next steps of strategy moving forward. Number one, think strategically. As we spoke about today, there's quite a lot of sophisticated sort of products from Microsoft working together in a stack. And it's important that you think strategically to be able to hold all those work together. Try and avoid just basically using the each individual product as a tactical solution, because tactically they may fit you as short-term sort of gains right now, but in a business sense, you need to think strategically of how all these work together, because it's the sum of many parts gives you the maximum gains. So number one, think strategically. Number two, change. There is no option. The world around us is changing. The applications we use, the industry, the sectors we all live and work in, our lives are constantly changing. With the cloud, we've seen acceleration in that change. And I know that when I entered IT many years ago, it was to basically help users take advantage of IT by writing programs to make life easier. So as IT professionals, we're sort of looking at what's changing in the marketplace, what we can do in our businesses to give our users and our businesses the better competitive advantage, make things more productive, make collaborative, and basically make things easier. So change is an option. Just sit back, you've got to change. The cloud is here. It's never going to go away. More and more people are now embracing cloud technologies. I think if you ever use Amazon, you're giving so your credit card information and your life away to Amazon to get products and services online and all the benefits that go with it. And also in the business environment, the cloud is here in terms of Microsoft 365, Azure is here, private cloud is here, and basically use it. You can get more power out of the cloud than we can provide on premise, that's for sure. And we look at some of the functionality within sort of Azure and Skype for Business and Teams. You can't provide that functionality on premise anymore. You need a lot more power. So look at the cloud, look at your cloud strategy and how you're going to embrace it. Number four, set and manage expectations. This is really, really key. I can stand in front of you and I can give you lots and lots of slides, set your expectations really high of how these applications, these suites of products working together are really going to change your business environment and really, really change the way your users work. However, when you then go back and deploy those, you then got to make sure that you give or deliver those expectations to users. And that may not happen very easily. So set and manage your user expectations, your business expectations. Look at the art of the possible. Think strategically, yes, I can go and deliver all these services, but set and manage expectation of what you can deliver phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. That may be simple, just using Office 365, deliver an email out to the cloud. The next step would be SharePoint. The next step would be using Teams. And the next step is Enterprise Voice. Look how they're going to stack up, but you deliver each piece and make sure you set the customer's expectations, your users. User adoption is key. They're central to everything. Don't abandon them. Don't ignore them. Don't just go and deliver a solution that's configured up as you perceive they will use it, when actually the way they're going to use it is going to be different. And what I'm seeing now with the product suites within Microsoft is there are many ways to get to the same endpoint. So I may do something with the application one way, and you may do it a separate way. And it's up to the user to find the best way of using the application to deliver the way they want to work. So just don't prescribe a solution and give it to a user. Get them on board, get their inputs, get their ownership, and get them to champion it. And its business success will be sort of guaranteed at the end as the users accept the technology you give them. And number 6, Teams is here. I haven't spent a lot of time talking about Teams. I could talk a lot longer. Teams is here. It's new. You've got it in Office 365. Go and use it. It's coming together with Skype for Business. It's really, really exciting, and it's going to show us a lot of new applications, a lot of new ways of working that are just going to make life a lot easier. So Teams is here. Go and look at it and play with it. And just to finish, one of my favorite quotes from Jack Welch, and it's on the screen there. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. That's going back to change. Change is out there. If your competitors, if other people, other organizations, new entrants in the market are changing faster than what you can change, the end is nigh.
Thanks, Lynn. Just the final couple of slides just for everybody, just to let everybody know, just in a few weeks' time, GCI will be exhibiting at LegalX 21st, 22nd of March at the Excel. There's over 200 exhibitors there, over 100 keynote speakers, so lots of great content going on. And what I say, try and say to everybody is at these events, we have all our best technical talent in one place at one time. It rarely happens, so definitely if you've got questions that you'd like to ask, these guys are the best people to ask them to. Just to give you an idea on the stand itself, we'll have live demonstrations, ad hoc demonstrations of Skype and Teams, a lot of interest around Teams at the moment. We'll also have the contact center and PCI guys there that you can speak to, as well as Linda mentioned, M365, including EMS and Azure, and how that's obviously being utilized to great effect within the legal sector. We'll also have the Surface range available, including the studio, actually on stands, so if you obviously want to come along and have a chat about that. And then thanks to Microsoft, they're supporting the event with us as well. On the first day at 2 o'clock on the 21st of March, we've got our CSO, Scott Riley's speaking, and also Nikki Meekins, who's the Territory Channel Manager at Microsoft, will be speaking about the legal sector, which digital technologies to look out for, and obviously the impact they're having and what's about to happen in the future. So anybody would obviously like to come along, we'd welcome that. And then we'll just move to the final section now, which is just the questions. Obviously the 3 areas that we've touched upon today really was just the questions to answer was really to sort of give you an idea of what solutions were trending within the legal sector, why you should consider those solutions, and what's being delivered, and obviously examples of that within the legal sector that's been achieved. So hopefully between me and Lyndon today, we've managed to answer some questions and create some clarity for you. I'll just hand back to Dan because I know we've had a few questions and we can just try and cover those off quickly.
Thank you, Keith and Lyndon. We've had a few questions submitted by registrants before the webinar, so we'll start with those to give everyone a chance to finish typing theirs in the chat box. Number 1, what's the difference between Microsoft 365 and Office 365?
Okay, thanks, Dan. Difference between Office 365 and Microsoft 365. Office 365 is basically Microsoft Office product suite and a lot more in the cloud. Word, Excel, Exchange, all those services in the cloud, SharePoint, OneDrive, OneNote. You've got a suite of services. They're basically desktop services. Okay, so that's what we know as Office 365. Microsoft 365 is basically a Microsoft suite of licenses or programs covering Windows 10, EMS, Enterprise Mobility and Security, Office 365, and also some of the advanced Azure services, all bundled into one product, or product offering, I should say, or product suite. So it just gives you the ability to have the latest and greatest from Microsoft in one go, and basically Microsoft 365 encompasses Office 365. Hope that helps and you understand that.
Brilliant. Second question, I haven't got Skype for Business or Microsoft Teams. Which should I use?
Okay, this is a really important question. Depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at enterprise voice, okay, and you're looking at enterprise voice, you want some call recording, you want some contact center applications, you want some PCI recording. The message from Microsoft is don't ignore Skype for Business. Go and look and use Skype for Business, okay, and that will provide you the enterprise sort of voice functionality as is. If you've got some, very, very simple voice requirements, or you're not looking at enterprise voice right now, then Microsoft is saying go and look at Teams, go and use Teams. Because what's happening behind the scenes is Microsoft is adding all the functionality of Skype for Business we know now into Teams. So right now, in terms of enterprise voice, Skype for Business is more mature and has more functionality than Teams. But over time, we're going to see Teams come up onto an equal base of functionality. And then over time, Teams will basically forge ahead with the new product services, mainly offered from the cloud. And Skype for Business will stay as it is. So right now, if it's enterprise voice, Skype for Business. If you've got low requirements for voice, then go basically Teams and use Microsoft Phone Service.
Brilliant. Number 3, do solutions like Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business come with analytics and insight into internal adoption? We need to see return on investment.
Okay. So when Skype for Business or Skype for Business underneath Teams, which is still being used, makes a call, it has a CDR, call data log basically. In that log is everything around that conversation, everything around who made the call, what endpoints. So we have a really big database of information around calls. Okay, what we can do is using some analytics based in the Microsoft portals and underneath Skype for Business, we can look at that data. It's a giant SQL database. We can use some of the tools that Microsoft give us to analyze that. We can get some third-party software on top of that to basically analyze it for us, or we can use Power BI to analyze that data ourselves and get insights into our users. Are they using it? How are they using it? Are they using it on mobiles? Are they using it mainly for audio conferencing? Are they not answering their calls at all? We can get all that information out, and that then can be replayed into actually looking at users, user profiles, user groups, and having and basically ascertaining whether they're using the product properly and whether there's some training required, education required. So yes, it's there. There's some very rich information there, and we can get it out in several different ways and analyze it to help us deliver Skype for Business Teams more successfully.
Brilliant. Final question. We haven't got Office 365. Can we still use Microsoft Teams?
Okay, so no, you can't. You can't use Microsoft Teams without Office 365. It's not offered by Microsoft as a separate line item. So if you've got Office 365, it's part of E3 and E5 basically, so it's built into the cloud. So unfortunately you can't. And also if you're looking at Teams, you have to consume it from the cloud because a lot of the functionality within there relies on some of the deep processing in Azure. You can't put Teams on premise.
Okay, brilliant. Good questions, good answers. Thank you everyone for your time this morning, and thank you to Lyndon and Keith. We hope you have a great day and look forward to seeing you at one of our future webinars or events very soon. Goodbye.